Welcome to the update on the Tofino Tourism Master Plan and Draft Vision and Goals Introduction. First off, what is a tourism master plan? Well, essentially a tourism master plan is a planning document that gives some direction. It has a vision, it looks out into the future, goals, something a bit more specific called strategic directions, and then actions, as well as indicators to measure progress and to help for ongoing evaluation on progress. And then also it deals with some of the governance for implementation, how to actually get things happening, how partners might work together, what their roles and responsibilities are. The Tourism Master Plan for Tofino has been looking at the following questions. What is the current experience with tourism in Tofino? What value does it bring to Tofino? What type of community support do we have? What business goals related to tourism do we expect to achieve? What kind of community goals related to tourism do we expect to achieve? How does it support broader community success and sustainability for the community through tourism? How do we achieve these goals? What type of tourism products do we have and what do we need? What type of visitor are we hoping to attract? The master plan ties into the Vision to Action Integrated Community Sustainability Plan. So it's one cog in the wheel of plans that make Tofino a better place to live, work, and play. Tourism is obviously quite closely connected to the economy, but it also benefits other parts of community life, as we've found so far through this project. But primarily it connects to the economy, which helps drive the vision to action and the goals for the community of Tofino. So as I mentioned, the Vision to Action is an integrated community sustainability plan. It's broader and more comprehensive than existing plans. And it takes directions from many of the recent plans that have been completed, such as the Official Community Plan Update, the Arts Culture Plan, the Heritage Plan, and the Recreation Master Plan, among others. But it really ties the goals and visions of all those plans together to make a comprehensive plan and direction for the community. It's long-term, looking out 20 to 30 years, so it talks about what Tofino would look like in 20 to 30 years to help express broader community vision. It's based on outcomes, really, for a thriving and sustainable future. And really, it's an overarching plan with policies to guide all planning and decision-making. So the Tourism Master Plan is one of the first plans to actually kind of be created alongside or in alignment directly with the Vision to Action plan. And the two processes that are going on right now have been staggered somewhat to allow for the Tourism Master Plan to really align directly with the Vision to Action. The process for completing the Tourism Master Plan is as follows. Step 1, setting the stage, where we met stakeholders, we design engagement to how we're going to engage the community and tourism stakeholders. It involves assessing the current situation. So starting to implement that engagement strategy, asking people about how tourism currently impacts Tofino, but also identifying the experiences that Tofino offers, identifying the current visitor, who they are, where they're coming from, start looking at maybe new markets, some of the tourism assets that are in Tofino, whether they be natural, built, or ones that businesses are offering as far as activities. And we also developed a situation analysis which looked at some of the strengths and weaknesses of the Tofino experience in many different areas, the strengths and weaknesses of how tourism supports the community, and then also some of the opportunities and threats given what's happening outside of Tofino in places where Tofino doesn't really actually have much of a role in creating trends, but can instead react to those opportunities and those trends to further tourism in the community. Once we did that, we started to draft a vision, a long-term vision, which ties into the Vision to Action plan, and drafting long-term goals. And that's kind of where we are today with an update on those draft goals and the draft vision. And we'll be seeking some feedback on that. Once we do that, we start to develop and stress strategies, strategic directions. We started to have those conversations a little bit, and then we move into preparing a draft implementation plan with actions and developing indicators in an evaluation system to make sure that progress can be tracked and we can learn from that progress and action implementation to essentially further the tourism goals on an ongoing basis. And finally, just building an implementation to ensure that the plan is beginning to get implemented. And as you can see along the bottom, engagement is quite a big part of this planning process, and there's engagement steps all the way along the plan right from the beginning to the end. Engagement to date has included 3 stakeholder presentations from Tourism Tofino, Parks Canada, and the District of Tofino, 12 interviews with different people involved in the tourism sector, primarily businesses, and 1 or 2 developers. It has included about 200 surveys that were completed by residents of Tofino and folks that work in tourism in Tofino but perhaps live somewhere else in the rim. We had 3 sector-specific presentations to the working group along the way. So we had some folks from the culinary experience sector, from the marine tourism, and also from the kind of the surf business, retail, rental, lesson sector come and talk a little bit about some of the opportunities in those areas, some of the past trends, where they're at, some of the challenges they're having, and how we could potentially help them through this plan. There's also been a significant amount of background research gone on as well to help inform some of the situation analysis. As you may know, we've also had a tourism working group made up of a number of members of Tofino's tourism sector and industry, as well as a couple of NGOs who are involved in tourism in the community. So some of the insights that we've gathered through the engagement are the following, and they're covered in the next few slides. So we found that tourism is a large part of Tofino's economy, directly employing about 600 people as measured in the Canada Census in 2006. But when you look at the peak visitation and peak jobs, as well as jobs outside of Tofino that depend on people traveling to Tofino and tourism in the area, it gets up to about 1,800 to 2,400 jobs that are connected somehow to Tofino's tourism economy. It generates somewhere between $200 and $300 million based on room revenues of about $34 million a year, and that's not insignificant. Looking at the different resort municipalities, Tofino stands kind of second to Whistler as far as that kind of revenue generation. Essentially, tourism is part of the community, but we've heard from people that it's not an end in itself. Again, tourism is really important for the economy and supporting community life, but community life, and living in Tofino and other aspects of the economy, though they're a bit smaller, are really critical, and there's a real interest to diversifying the economy into some different streams. There's benefits that go beyond economic, though, including just diversity of offerings, shops, restaurants in the community, diversity of people, conversations that residents would have with other people in the community and visitors, an addition of amenities to the community through tourism, and also a strong notion of tourism helping to protect the environment, reducing the need for more resource-dependent industry in the area, and that it has a strong role in that sense. Folks are generally supportive of recent tourism development, but definitely more interested in seeing growth outside of the summer season, where it's not quite as busy and where it would help, generate jobs year-round. Some of the problems created, from tourism, they kind of varied with the feeling that the economic benefit again could be greater if it's spread throughout the year, and that really the infrastructure needs improvement to help manage some of the impacts of tourism on the community and the natural environment. Those are some feelings from the survey, and also just feelings that related somewhat to if tourism was going to grow, infrastructure needs some improvement to support that. The beaches are also the primary attraction, for folks visiting the area. Really, the natural areas are a strong part of why people come to Tofino, with lots of people partaking in some different activities, with surfing, hiking, visiting the Pacific Rim National Park Reserve, and whale watching being some of the top activities that people do. I also found that there's significant excess capacity for 10 months of the year. The 2 months in the summer being peak months, but there's still some opportunity to optimize that summer business, especially earlier on in the summer. But definitely lots of capacity in the shoulder seasons, June, and September, with the spring potentially holding more potential for future development and growth based on some visitor surveys of folks who've come to Vancouver Island. Business is picking up more recently after decreasing and kind of flatlining for a few years, which is great to see, especially as we came into the tail end of 2013. More people are looking to past experiences and online to review experiences to Tofino when they're considering going to Tofino. Just finding more people getting that data from friends and family through online social media channels, and other conversations when they're considering coming to Tofino as well. So just an interesting connection there on the importance of word of mouth on driving decisions for people coming to Tofino. We also learned that primarily couples and groups of adults coming to both the park and Tofino in the summer months when some surveying has taken place. But there are also families too, smaller group overall, but play a significant role in visitors coming to Tofino. Spending is highest by overnight guests, and particularly those guests who are coming from Canada and the U.S. So tend to spend more, likely on a daily basis, and also for the total trip experience tend to stay in the community longer than regional guests. And regional guests, essentially folks from British Columbia, make up a pretty significant amount of people coming to Tofino. It sits at about 60%, with Canada at about 20%, and the rest broken up between the U.S. and overseas visitors. So BC residents are more likely to be repeat visitors, but tend to spend a little bit less per day and per trip when they come to Tofino. And we found also that visitors, do travel both to Ucluelet and Tofino when they are there, recognizing the different amenities in both places and different experiences as well. Okay, some other insights that we learned about. We learned that the development capacity is remaining in the community right now, even though there's a significant amount of development that's taken place in recent years. There's quite a bit more that can still take place. But at the same time, infrastructure is in high demand at peak times. And so this is something that we learned about and is looking to be a bit of a challenge. But the district is looking into doing a capacity study this year and into next, essentially looking at, what would Tofino look like once this was all built out. How many people might be here? What's the demand needed for infrastructure, from roads to sewage to water, and getting a sense of what that means and how that might happen. So that will help with some of those decisions around that development capacity and perhaps staging of development. It's really just responsible planning and important to make sure everything is needed is there when development may occur. Transportation within the community is challenging at peak times, we've heard, during the summer months. As is peak season staffing. It's a bit challenging, especially getting the right skills and the right number of people. Partnerships amongst business segments and government groups are quite strong, actually, and they're getting stronger. So that was kind of a good strength there when we had business groups talking to us. They talked about how they get together, whether it's the surf businesses, marine tourism operators get together and talk about business and different issues, a couple of times throughout the year. So that was a good strong sign of networking that's required to help make tourism successful. So most of that information was kind of internal trends to Tofino and what's happening in Tofino. We also looked at some external trends that are kind of impacting tourism in general and Tofino as well. And these were kind of just some of the key ones that came out. One is that we're moving toward a lower Canadian dollar after many years of parity with the US dollar. So there may be some opportunities there as far as offering better value to US visitors. Economies around the world, especially North America, are starting to recover. And visitation is too, albeit the recoveries are still quite risky, we've heard, but there is expected growth in both Canada, the U.S., as well as European countries, but primarily the U.S. and Canada driving that growth. But again, still a risky environment. Aging demographics, starting to see definitely older travelers, folks with more time, leisure time, and ability to spend time traveling, and there may be a different experience expectation for this group. So it's just something to keep in mind as we're doing the planning. Emerging economies are starting to create definitely around the Asia Pacific, are expected to have the strongest tourism growth in the coming years. So creates a very competitive environment for Canada. But at the same time, those emerging economies and growing middle class will present opportunities for other destinations around the world as well coming in future years. So something to keep in mind. Increasingly, especially in the regional area, we're finding that populations are more multicultural in some of these key regional markets, and the implication there is that typically multicultural communities or folks who are more recent Canadian residents are less likely to engage in outdoor activities, of which Tofino's got some really strong assets in. So just something to kind of keep in mind in that growing trend, and how to find opportunities that may appeal to that group and that market. We'll also learn that the funding for the Pacific Rim National Park Reserve is tenuous. It's reducing, not guaranteed, and that that's one of the biggest attractions in the area. So just something to keep in mind, and that's their federal funding. So trying to find new ways to generate revenue to create a great experience. The Canadian Tourism Commission, also the funding that they have for marketing has been reducing over the last couple of years, and therefore they've decided to stop marketing in the U.S. leisure market and left that up to provincial bodies and destinations to focus on themselves. And we've also learned as we come out of this bit of a recession we've had in North America that the labor supply will be increasingly tighter, making it potentially more challenging to attract staff for peak tourism months and throughout the year. So moving on to the plan itself, and how do we structure that, and where are we trying to go with this plan after understanding kind of the current situation. We move into this slide, which starts to articulate the framework for the tourism plan. And the tourism master plan obviously has a vision that looks out 20 to 25 years. That's an important part, looking out to that time frame. And just underneath that, we have tourism focus area kind of 10-year goals that look out from 2014 to 2024. And there's 4 goals, and we could put those beside each other, but we've kind of stacked them in a bit of a relationship, a cause and effect relationship, I guess, and how they relate to each other. And the way they're structured relates somewhat to how we've heard people in Tofino talking about tourism and the role that tourism plays. And if you look at the left-hand side of the framework, there's three statements aligned vertically. And looking at the top, we've definitely heard from the community that tourism needs to support community well-being and the natural environment in the area. It needs to support the strong natural environment and a strong community and economy, kind of encompassed in the word community well-being. At the same time, to do that, tourism needs to deliver, a visitor economy and experience for visitors, so that it can support those two goals. And the visitor economy and the experience doesn't exist in a total vacuum. There's people and organizations and systems and other types of infrastructure that are required to help deliver that visitor experience in that economy. So tourism requires a capacity to deliver. And so we've got a goal kind of around that area. And there's a circular arrow in there which to some degree kind of relates to the relationship amongst these goals and kind of the continuous connection of those. Obviously, a stronger community and environment can attract people to help deliver, better visitor economy and experience. And these things really disconnect to each other. So it's just one way of organizing the structure of the goals in somewhat of a logic model and connections. And of course, because the tourism master plan relates to the vision to action, the goals and the focus areas as they're written need to tie into that Tofino vision and vision to action goals. And there were 5 goals from vision to action, and really the intent of those goals and the outcomes for those goals are encompassed in the tourism master plan vision and the goals as well. So this idea is that we're really trying to align the tourism master plan with the broader tourism vision and vision to action direction. So this presentation is primarily about the vision and the goals and those draft statements that we have and getting feedback on that. But the rest of the tourism plan, again, will have strategic directions falling under each goal. They kind of look out 3 to 5 years. They're not really specific action, but more a general area of actions where the community focuses on to help achieve the goals and moving toward the vision. And finally, the actions are the final thing just on the bottom slide there. So moving on to the vision and the words for the vision and how that's written, we got a lot of feedback through the survey of residents, the tourism survey of residents, asking them what their vision was for tourism in Tofino looking forward. We also asked the question for folks during the interviews that we did. And what we consistently heard were comments like year-round tourism, sustainable tourism, culturally appropriate, keeping Tofino unique and authentic, increasing educational and cultural offerings, and maintaining that small town vibe in a natural setting. And when we pulled out kind of the top 50 words in a Wordle cloud map here, a word cloud, from people's comments in the survey, these were the ones that came up, and that the size indicates really the quantity of times that word came up. So you can see some of the words in there that people were talking about. Year-round, sustainable, community tourism came up quite a bit. Local, experience, small, and visitors, natural. So lots of things in there that words in there that people were using to describe what the tourism vision should be for Tofino. And from that, just tried to word craft a vision statement for Tofino's tourism and tourism Tofino looking forward to 20 to 25 years. And it comes out like this. So tourism's year-round contribution to Tofino's well-being is built upon a foundation of exceptional, authentic experience that uplift bodies, minds, and spirits by connecting visitors to Tofino's West Coast peoples, eclectic culture, and natural places. And so the questions around that vision that we're asking now as we try to get feedback on that vision is, looking at that vision, asking, is it a stretch for the community given the trends that we've heard about and some of the insights we've heard? Does the vision embody what we think tourism should be like in 20 to 25 years? Those are really the questions that we're trying to look at here and get some feedback on that so that we can move forward and embody and embrace this vision in the tourism master plan. And once again, here is the draft vision. Moving on to the draft 10-year goals, these goals are essentially meant to be statements toward the vision, and essentially trying to achieve these goals will put Tofino in a great place to continually move toward that vision that was articulated on the earlier slide. And the goals are listed in 4 different areas, and we'll just go through those here kind of one by one or 2 by 2. So looking at community well-being, where tourism needs to support, Tofino is a healthy, resilient, culturally rich community with appropriate infrastructure and diverse personal and economic opportunities to achieve a high quality of life. Tourism needs to support the natural environment, where regional ecosystems are healthy, enhanced by leading stewardship practices, and celebrated through experiences offered in Tofino's unique setting. So both of these different goals have tried to capture some of the words and feelings that we've heard from people. Obviously, community well-being is about contributing to the economy, which ultimately contributes to quality of life and economic opportunity to help Tofino be a more resilient place. So Tofino may not be the only part of the economy. It's helped to diversify the economy somewhat and become a little more resilient community. The natural environment, again, the importance of that for tourism, but also for folks living there. The stewardship of the natural environment by tourism and folks who are visiting the area, but also ensuring that the natural environment continues to be celebrated and that visitors are somewhat celebrated and immersed in this unique setting, so that tourism can continue to play the role that it has in helping to protect the natural environment as well. So really trying to capture the sense that the natural environment is celebrated through these tourism experiences, and people that come to Tofino engage with the natural environment in some way and holding that as part of their memories. Moving on to the next goal around what tourism needs to deliver. Let me just move down in the framework and look at the visitor economy and experience. And the goal for this one is that Tofino provides an exceptional visitor experiences, a diversity of offerings, and a strong value proposition to visit the area during summer months and throughout the entire year. So we talked about having these unique value year-round, not just in the summer, but also trying to build that throughout the year and other months. And value wasn't, we talked about this, it's not really cheap experiences or inexpensive experiences. Value is really, it's a combination of the experience given the pricing. So it's not about making things cheap, but about offering value. And sometimes offering value isn't just, reducing prices. It's often just trying to find those little bits of the experience that add that additional value and just kind of, put the cherry on top of the sundae for the visitor to make that experience as good as it can be given what they're spending at that time of the year. And making sure the offerings are there to offer visitors lots of things to do and to help them immerse themselves in the Tofino tourism experience. And then finally, tourism requires, this is the last goal around the capacity to deliver, and really shortened into a tight statement that Tofino has the right resources, the capacity and partnerships to deliver on all the tourism goals. So it includes maybe some element of its infrastructure in this. It's really about the people who are there to deliver it with the knowledge and the skills and the systems and relationships and partnerships within Tofino, within the region, and within the province to help deliver what's needed around the visitor economy and experience, such that that experience and that economy can support the community well-being and natural environment. So those are the 5 draft goals for the Tourism Master Plan. Now really the questions we're asking around these goals is, looking at all the goals together, do you think they collectively describe what this plan should be focusing on for Tofino? So just going back to those goals, here they are, and ultimately, are they collectively describing what you think this plan should be focusing on? So this is where we are at in the process most immediately. Again, looking at the situation analysis and moving into the draft vision and the draft long-term goals. And that's where we're at, trying to get some feedback. Pretty soon, and we've already started talking as a group, the Tourism Master Plan Working Group, a little bit around some of those strategies toward those goals in that vision. And those could be adjusted if the goals and vision end up getting adjusted at this time, but this is kind of where the group's heading now in these kind of conversations, and really trying to incorporate feedback from the survey where we asked people about what are the best opportunities for Tofino to pursue, and incorporating that into our conversations and trying to figure out what are the best directions to focus on so that we can really move towards where people in the community want tourism to be. And then ultimately we'll be rounding out at the end with indicators to help evaluate, and then talking about roles and responsibilities with the plan going forward. So we'll be moving into finalizing strategic directions and actions kind of near the end of mid to end of April, and now really just trying to get everyone's feedback at this stage on the draft vision and the long-term goals. And that's really it at the moment. So if you have any questions on the Tourism Master Plan and where it's going, where it's come from, where it's going, there's 2 people you can contact. One with the District of Tofino, the Manager of Resort Municipality Initiative Services, April Froment. You can reach her in Tofino and by email and by phone. And then myself, Dan Wilson, at the Whistler Center for Sustainability as well. Thanks very much for your time.